60 seconds will give you 1 minute. Now, it's 45 seconds instead of 60 seconds. Now, compare them. We are comparing seconds and seconds. That is what is available for us to compare. Seconds and seconds. 60 gave me this. 45. Are you expecting more or less? You're expecting less. Yes. You're expecting less minutes. So if less, then more of 8 kinds divide. So seconds over second times 1 minute. That is the answer. Calculate and see. Calculate it and see. That will be your answer. Now let's see this example. If 1000 meters equals 1 kilometer, then the examiner is asking, what if it is 50 meters? So what you're comparing is the meters and meters. It's not meters and kilometer. So 1000 gave me 1 kilometer. Just 50. The meter has been reduced to what? 50. Are you expecting more or less? Less. So if less, then the more of kind it kind will divide meter over meter times 1 kilometer, and that produces the answer 0.05 kilometers. So this is the analysis you expected to do. The example II is similar to that. The II is asking, what if it's 75 kilometers? This time we compare kilometer and kilometer. Watch. The first equation we wrote is the same equation we are applying. You don't change it. Go by the same standard. You get your answer. Now ask if it's kilometer. So we compare the kilometer and kilometer. 1 kilometer gave me this. Now the kilometer has increased to 75. Am I expecting more? Sure. The kilometer, the distance has increased. I'm expecting more. Do you get it? So you compare kilometer and kilometer. If 1 kilometer is for 1000 meters, then 75 increase. 75 kilometers will give me what? More. So if more, the less of it kind divide kilometer over kilometer. So at this stage, because it's asking for kilometer, that is what you compare. Kilometer over kilometer times the 1000 meters, and it produces what? 75,000 meters. You see that the answers even make sense. 75,000 meters. When it's 75, but when it's just 1 kilometer, it's 1000. So these are all proportion we apply. In all these cases, we apply proportion, right? So let's go further to do more. So now indirect proportion. So direct proportion, as one component increases, the other component also increases, right, in the same direction. Unlike that, indirect proportion, as one component increases, the other component reduces or decreases, and vice versa. So it's opposite direction. So that's why sometimes you can even call it inverse proportion, or opposite proportion. Either way is correct. So opposite direction. That is how simple it is. Have you gotten the key? Now let's see example of such. If 5 men, you're talking about 5 men, use 2 hours. 5 men use 2 hours to complete a piece of work, right? 5 men use 2 hours to complete a piece of work. The examiner is asking, how long will it take 10 men to complete the same piece of work, working at the same rate, right? So nothing changes. All other constants are, all other factors are held with constant. All other things being equal, as the economists would say. So don't say, oh, what if the last batch of men are stronger, faster, work harder? No. Those constants are not working. They are held constant. Are you okay? So that is what it means. So you go. 5 men. So listen to this carefully. Use how many? 2 hours to complete work. This is work. It's not about money as we did earlier. This is work. They are complete piece of work. Okay. Now, the men have increased to how many? 10. Would they need more time to finish the same piece of work, or do they need less time? 5 men. They use 2 hours. Now the men have increased. They need more time. It's less time. You get it? This is the analysis you have to do. So number of men and work. is always indirect proportion, inverse proportion. So as the number of men increase to 10, the hours needed, that's the time needed to complete the piece of work, will reduce. So men increase and time reduces. Inverse, opposite direction. You get the picture? That is the key. So that is the analysis you must do. Alright, so let's write it. This is how you write it. If 5 men equals 2 hours, then 10 men, we expected them to use less time. But what are we comparing? After knowing what you are, whether it's less or more, what are you comparing? You are comparing what? Men. That is what is available to compare, men to men. So if less, more men divides times 2 hours. So first of all, know which one are you expecting. When you are done, what are you comparing? Then use that expectation to compare. You're expecting less time. So if less, more divides. That becomes the answer. Let's calculate and see. 5 over 10 times 2. So 5 divided by 10 times 2. What do you have? 1. Good. So the men will use what? Just 1 hour. 10 men will use 1 hour. Does it make sense? 5 men use 2 hours. But 10 men are using 1 hour to finish the same piece of work. Is it not sensible? It makes sense. So this is a logic aspect. When you finish, check if your answer makes sense. So men and piece of work is always inverse proportion. Take note. Now he's asking, how many men will be needed to complete in 6 hours? The same English, the same question. If 5 men use 2 hours to complete a piece of work, how many hours or how long will it take? Right? Or how many men will be needed to complete the same piece of work in 6 hours? Now, 5 men, 2 hours. Now 6 hours. Are you expecting more men or few men? More time has been allocated. So we are comparing time now. Do you see it? Time and time. If he's asking for whatever he asks for is what you compare. He's asking for time, right? Good. So time and time. 2 hours was allocated to 5 men. Now 6 hours. More time has been allocated to the same piece of work. Nothing has been added to the piece of work. He's asking, will you need more men or less men? If less, because you are giving more time. The work has not changed. Do you understand? So few men can complete within that long period. Doesn't make sense to you? This is logic. So it makes sense. So we are expecting what? Less. So if less, what? More divides. But remember, you are comparing time and time. If less, so the less is what? 2 hours. The more is what? The 6 hours. Multiply by the men. Have you gotten the picture? How many are the men? 5 men. So 2 divided by 6 times 5 men. You get what? 1.6. Now, I'm asking you a simple question. How many are the men? We got answer to what? That we are going to need 1.6 men to complete the same piece of work. What should I write as the final answer? I think you have not seen a fraction human being before. So in this case, the examiner expects you to run it to the nearest whole number. We are talking about human beings, men. So run it to what? 2 men. Don't write 1.6 men. Unless the examiner states that, leaving your answer in 2 decimal place or once, whatever he asks you to convert. Fine. Agreed. But if he's silent, he's expecting you to know that men cannot be in fractions. Therefore, run it to the nearest men. Thank you. These are the logic aspect of it. It's not part of the syllable. He expects you to think that it is human beings you are counting. Therefore, we cannot have 1.5 human being. Have you seen one before? No. So those who say math is difficult, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes it is this aspect